What's up, guys? This is Chetty. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This video, we're going to be kicking off the Git Crash Course. I'm going to teach you everything that you need to know about Git and nothing that you don't. We are going to be simulating a real-world scenario where you have just started work at a startup and you are going to need to clone the repo and submit a PR. This is going to be 90% of your day-to-day activities as a software developer. So let's just go ahead and dive straight into it. Now, if there's one incredibly important thing, if you can just remember this will greatly benefit you in the future and help your understanding of Git. All Git does is track changes. At the end of the day, there's countless complex commands that you can use in Git, and there's all types of crazy, amazing things that you can do. But at the very heart of it, at the very foundational level, the only thing that Git does is keep track of changes that people make to code bases or just documents in general. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, Teddy, what exactly does that even mean? Watch. So in any project that you have, you are going to have a Git file in the background. You can't actually see it in Windows. I think you can actually see it in Mac, but in the background, there's actually a Git file within this project. And within this file, it is going to keep track of changes. And this Git file is also going to be tied to your IDE. So visually watch. If I go J, watch what happens right after I make that J. I may actually need to do a little bit more than that to actually get it to trigger. So if I go here, what's going to happen is this little 1 is going to pop up. And this means that there are changes. And if you look within this source control or this little branch looking thing, as you can see, Git just tracked the changes. And if you click on this changes right here, and you do this every day as a software developer, you can see the changes that you just made. And that's the whole entire idea behind it. And that's basically what Git does. Now, we're going to build on top of that, but just keep that in mind. And if you want to see your changes, just always go to this little branch. And this occurs in IntelliJ. This is in Visual Studio. Any IDE is going to have Git built into it and allow you to visually see all of these changes. So in a real life scenario, what is going to happen is the employer is going to send you an email that grants you access to a private repo. Now, obviously, being that this is a YouTube channel, I can't allow you to access a private repo because that wouldn't make sense. So what we're going to do is pretend you got an email from an employer and pretend that this is a private repo, and I'll drop a link down in the description. This is a public repo, but what we're going to do is pretend that it's private. So you have been given this repo. What you are going to do is you are going to do a Git clone. A Git clone simply means that you are going to take a copy and download it off the internet. You're going to clone an exact carbon copy of the latest version of the software and put it onto your local machine so that you can actually work on it. So there are infinite ways to do a Git clone, but the easiest and the most common way is to just open up VS Code in a folder, create a folder. I could just call this one Git Crash Course, opened it up in VS Code in the documents file, and let's go ahead and make sure that we have Git installed. I have Git installed on my machine, but if you don't have Git installed, what you want to do is you just want to type in Git install in Google and go to this website. It looks very 90s-ish, but if it looks 90s-ish, that is where you want to be. Go ahead and install Git right here. It's very easy. And once you do that, you will then see that you have commands at your disposal. The next thing that we need to do is we actually need to do the clone. To do a clone in any type of Bitbucket, Azure, GitHub, obviously we are in GitHub right now. It's incredibly simple. You will see clones somewhere in the UI right here in actual GitHub. You go to code right here. And what you want to do is you want to get this link and copy it onto your clipboard. Then we want to just go back straight into VS Code. And then we are going to type in git clone and type in the actual link that we just copied from the repo. And if you go here and go ahead and clone it, as you can see, a file lit up right here, and now we have access to the super secret startup that we just had in our Git repo. So we've just cloned our super secret startup onto our machine. We don't need to worry about getting it running because this is just a Git crash course. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to this notion of changes. Now, many people will claim that you need to do everything by command line, but in reality, in a true production environment, you're going to be doing a little bit of both. And actually being able to do both of them is going to make you way more productive. And that's what we're going to cover right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a random line of code. This doesn't really even make sense. You could call this whatever you want to. You could say auto mapper. You could say, I don't know, run group. You could say anything. And then we're also going to go down here and we're just going to remove this. Keep in mind, none of this actually makes any sense. We're just going to add a line of code and we're going to remove a line of code and watch what happens. If you look over here, our one lit up again, and that's because Git is tracking our changes. We don't have to do any command line activities because the GUI is going to do it all for us. And if you go here and actually click below changes, you can see your changes. And this is very important because this is what's called a diff. A diff is going to be incredibly important because a diff is going to show you where you added and removed code. And if you look here, you see green where we added code and you see red where we removed code. And that is the whole entire point of the diff, so that you can see the changes that you made and you can see things in precision. But let's also not forget that we can also do this with command line. It's not as visually pleasing, but if you want to just do a quick git status, let's see here, I'm not in the actual parent directory. I need to go back here. I need to actually cd into run group, just like this. And if I type in git status, what's going to happen is that you see modified and you can see it at a folder level and you can see the actual changes that you made. There are more complex ways to actually view the diff, but in 90% of cases, unless you're just doing a very broad sweep and you're just trying to see what you changed, git status is going to make sense at a folder level, but the GUI is going to make more sense at a file level and being able to see things more precisely and see the exact places where you made changes. And that is the beauty of using both the GUI and the command line. Now we're making lots of changes. Changes are great, but we need to actually do something with these changes. And you may have already guessed, we need to push these changes to the repo. And the process of this is actually multi-step, but we're going to break it down piece by piece. And this process is sometimes called a commit or a push. A commit is almost like loading little pieces of code into a code chamber. You're getting ready to fire your code off into cyberspace, but you need to actually put bullets into the chamber of code, so to speak. And the reason that we actually put bullets into a chamber is because you don't want to commit all your code. And the process of actually doing the add or putting the bullets into the chamber is called staging. And this is sometimes called an add, sometimes people call it staging, but we stage code and then we commit code because, like I said, we don't always want to push every single piece of code that we have, and we want to individually load pieces of code into our gun so that when we do the git push, we only send code that we want into the repo. So once again, let's do a GUI example. Let's do a command line example, but let's start with the GUI first because it's a little bit more intuitive and it's more easy to understand. First things first, go to your changes, go to your Git source control right here, right click, and what we're going to do is an actual very important command, and we're going to discard our changes. We can keep track of our changes, but we can also throw our changes out if we want to, and we can do a total reset. And when you have an empty source control right here, your project is reset. It is back to the way it was before you actually did anything. So what we're going to do, let's create a cool little Easter egg in here. I'm going to go down to the div at the end of this section, and I'm just going to add a div right here, and I'm going to say Easter egg. And this will be a cool little Easter egg, so if anybody actually finds this, they'll be amazed at how wonderful and cool we are. So as you probably already guessed, we have changes here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do the add, and then we're going to do the commit. So let's go into here. we're going to do the add. So we stage our changes. Sometimes it's called an add or it's called a stage. So we do the add, and our changes are now staged, but the actual bullets are in the chamber, but now we need to do the commit as well too. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our commit, and then we're going to say Easter egg, just like this. Then we're going to do the commit. The commit is literally you are now holding up the gun. You have added changes, you have raised the gun, but you have not fired the gun yet. In order to fire the gun, you actually sync the changes like this. But I'm not going to do this because I don't want to commit an Easter egg like this to an actual code base, because that would be not good. What we're going to do is we're going to be even cooler. We're going to put another bullet into the chamber. We're going to make another commit, because in this fairy tale land of Git, you can fire multiple bullets up to the code base. And a lot of times you want to do this because you're working on your code at bits and pieces. And when you get done with your code, you want to send all of the pieces of code up to the actual repo. So we're going to say Easter egg 2. So we're going to go /div just like that. What's going to happen is that voila, we have more changes, but we're going to do the actual commit, and we're going to do the actual push through the command line this time. And the way that you do it is you go into here, and we're going to say git add, just like this, and then we're going to say git commit m, and then we're going to say Easter egg 2, just like this, and we're going to commit it. And as you can see, we now have one file change, one insertion. The bullet is in the chamber. Both those bullets are in the chamber. We've raised the gun. And if we actually want to push this code, fire the weapon up to the code base, what you do is you do a git push. But we're not going to do that because, once again, I'm not going to commit Easter eggs up to a public code base like that. Just remember, git push. If you want to do it through the command line like that, follow those steps. Go ahead and press enter. I'm not going to do that. And if you want to do the same through the command line, what you do is you sync changes. Let's talk a little bit more about git push so that you have a better understanding of what's going on. We fired the weapon, Jason Statham style, whatever this dude's name is. I know that he's like a famous movie star, but we fired the code at the code base. And what's going to happen is that the commits, each individual commit that you make is going to be stored on something that looks like a timeline. And we do this because you're going to have other coworkers working on your code base, and you need to be able to keep track of who committed what. You have your coworker right here, you edited the login page, and at the same time, Sarah over here is also making edits as well too. Let's say she fixed the login bug. And as you can see, having this little commit timeline is going to be really helpful in keeping track of like what is actually going on in your code base. But how do you actually see this command, or how do you actually see this timeline? If you go to your code base right here, you go to this little commit thing like this, you can see all of the actual commits, and you can see the timeline of the changes that people made. And this is absolutely crucial in understanding what is going on in your code base. Okay, so at this point, we are pretty much code Clint Eastwood. But sometimes even the most badass code cowboys have a change of heart. Maybe we don't want to fire this code off into cyberspace. Maybe we don't want this beautiful code to be seen because it's so beautiful. Well, what you can do is you can do this thing called a git reset. And what a git reset is going to do is it's going to take these bullets out of the gun and make our code base exactly the same as it was before. So what we can do is we can go here and we can type in git reset and head. Now, there are many ways to do a git reset, but what a git reset head tilde symbol is going to do is it's going to reset the code base at the head or the very top of our timeline that I showed you guys. So I'm going to go here and watch what happens. Oh, wait a second. Hold on. I had a slash here. So we go git reset head. And what happens is that the changes are still here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and discard these changes. So we're going to go git reset head, git reset head. And right here, we can discard both of these changes. And now we have no changes in our working tree. We are right back to where we were before. But this is actually a very dangerous way of committing. you are committing straight into the timeline. It is very dangerous to do this, and this is actually somewhat similar to what you see in a production environment. But what we need to do is we need to create a branch and submit a PR. A PR is a very important term, and a PR is going to be slang for submitting what's called a pull request. A pull request is going to submit code and allow somebody else to review your code. And if that code is up to par, if the lead likes your code, if the code is not dangerous in any way, then the code can be merged. And we have to do this via called branching. Now, branching is pretty simple. It's exactly the way that it sounds. And in a production environment, what you're going to have is you're going to have a main branch, which is what we've been committing to, but you're also going to have a dev branch. And after that dev branch, what you're going to have is you're going to have branches after that. And you will have what are called feature branches. You will have bug branches. But we're not going to worry about any of that right now. And what we're going to do is we're just going to create a simple branch right here. And we are going to do a merge, or we're going to submit a PR. And we will call this, I don't know, bug or something. So let's go ahead inside of Visual Studio Code. Let's create a branch. Let's merge the branch. And I'll teach you guys how to submit a PR. Now, I'm just going to be 100% honest here. I've never actually created a branch and submitted a PR via the command line. I've always used a GUI, and using it through the GUI is pretty intuitive and easy to understand. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go up here, make sure that you're in your source control, and we're going to go to branch. We're going to create a branch. We're going to call this bug, just like this. Create a slash, and we'll say remove div. We'll just remove a random div. So just hit remove div. And this is typically the structure that you're going to see in a production environment. If it's a feature, you'll see this. If it's a, I don't know, usually it's just bugs and features. So we'll just go with a bug just like this. And we're going to go ahead, press enter. And what's going to happen is that Git is going to automatically switch the branch over for you, and you are going to be on the actual bug branch. And if you look down below, you probably can't see it. You can actually see which branch that we are on. And if you want to change it, if you want to switch back to the master branch, you can do that. But if you need to switch branches, I don't suggest using the command line. Just go down here, use the GUI, pick which one that you want. So we can go back to the master branch, or we can go back to the branch that we want. But just make sure that you are on the branch that is the bug remove div. And all that we're going to do is we're just going to do a little bit of practice here. We are going to just maybe delete this. Maybe we don't want that actual field right there. And the branch is going to function almost as exactly as what we were doing before, but you're going to be doing so in an imaginary different environment. The environment here is going to be a separate environment, and we branch because we don't want code to be conflicting with our main branch. We don't want to be altering our main branch because this is the branch that's going to be in the production environment, and you separate branches so that you can have almost like little separate containers where you can have code that does not affect the main branch. And when you actually commit to a different branch and you push to the actual origin, or you push to the main branch, what is going to happen is that it's going to submit the code via a PR. So if we go up here, let's just say we do our add changes just like this. We're going to do our add changes. And I'm not going to do this via the command line, like I said, because it's going to be a lot difficult. What you do is we'll say bug and say div fix just like this. So div fix, we're going to commit. And then what we're going to do is, instead of doing the git push, we are going to do the publish the branch, and it's going to send the branch up to the code base. And the difference is that when you actually submit a branch, and the difference is that when you actually submit a pull request, your boss is going to see a little notification come up right here or right here that says employee, Teddy or whoever, whatever your name is, just submitted a pull request. They're going to look at your code. They are going to go through your code, look at your code. And if the pull request is up to par, if your code is up to par, what is going to happen is they are going to merge this branch, and that code is now going to become part of the main. You will delete this branch, and that code will now be a part of the main branch. And the best part is that you don't have to worry about merging. You don't have to worry about any of this. You just submit the pull request. Almost all of this is automated for you. And this is pretty much all you need to know about Git in order to really get started. You don't need to know a lot. And everything that I just covered is going to be 90% of what you need to know for a production environment. And that is the whole entire video. Wasn't that easy? Anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to smash that like button, make sure to smash that subscribe button. And as always, thank you for watching.